I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to start out with prayer, and Alika Holt will be leading us in prayer.
Well, I certainly want to thank the candidates for taking the opportunity out of their lives to have the opportunity to serve us. But let's pray together over this meeting and for our Commonwealth and our district here. Lord, I thank you today for this wonderful opportunity for us to gather together as citizens of this Commonwealth. I just thank you for the freedoms and liberties that we have here, mostly through you. And I just pray, God, that you would, as individuals, convict us of our sins, Lord, and lead us by your Spirit to a place of repentance. I pray tonight for clarity and wisdom that would be given to these candidates to be able to articulate the things that's on their hearts, and that we as citizens could discern with integrity and discernment, Lord, those that stand for righteousness. I just pray, God, that we would have on our hearts that a nation that forgets God and will be turned into hell, and righteousness exalts a nation. And so, Lord, I pray, Lord, that righteousness would be exalted today, and that our hearts would be turned towards you during this time. And I just want, Lord, you to bless our Commonwealth and our county. And I know, Lord, that through leaders that are full of your wisdom, leaders that put an emphasis in their life is led by your word, I know, God, that that's the greatest leadership that we could have. And I pray, Lord, that you just help us tonight, and let all things be done for your glory. We're careful to give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Alika. If you guys want to remain standing for the pledge, is Chris here? Chris.
I don't need the mic, though.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have Esther McHugh sing the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Great job. Thank you, Esther. I'm just going to go over the rules real quick, then we'll have the coin toss. The rules are the candidates will get a 3-minute opening. We have a timekeeper. Paul Sorrell has generously agreed to be our timekeeper. The candidates will get 3 minutes opening. They will get 2-minute closing. They will get 2 minutes to answer the questions, and then they will get 1 30-second rebuttal if they choose to take it. I'd like to thank Paul Sorrell for being timekeeper. I'd like to thank Amanda Mattingly from PLG for coming out and assisting with this. Thank Alika Holt and Sheriff Pennaroa and Brandon Bryan of the Nelson County Sheriff's Department for agreeing to keep us safe here, as they always do here in our county. And we'll go ahead and have the coin toss. Brandon, you want to come up? Brandon's got a sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So-
Only got a badge on one side, other side of the county. We'll do head be the badge, tail be the county. So whoever,
Who wants to call it?
Ladies first.
I'll just let it drop on the ground where it's at.
It's heads. Thank you, Brandon.
You will?
All right, go ahead with your opening statement, Candy. Or, well, you choose if you want to go first or not.
I'll go first. Hello, my name is Candy Massaroni. I'm your current state representative. I'm a wife, a mother, and a Christian. I have had the honor of serving you for the last 2 years. I never really had any political aspirations until a couple of years ago. Politics kind of found me. And a couple of years ago, I had a wonderful job with the Air Force. And then all the mandates started, and I had to make a choice to give up my job or take a vaccine that I didn't think I needed. So that's when I started getting involved in politics. And then my child started having to wear a mask to school. My husband had to wear a mask to his school where he works. And it was kind of ridiculous, I thought. The only person that was saying that a mask that you can tear your t-shirt off and put it over your face that would keep you safe was Dr. Fauci. So none of it really made sense, and I didn't like the government's response. I believe the Constitution always matters, even in a time of crisis. And at that point, I decided to do something. I ran for office. As you probably know, I'm not the typical politician. I don't subscribe to the typical politics. I don't participate in the bourbon and cigars and all of the things that most politicians subscribe to. My philosophy has been to honor God and to honor my family and to honor the county and everything I've done. Once I got elected, I started noticing I was receiving a lot of PAC checks from special interest groups in the mail. And it was interesting as an eye-opener. So I sent all those checks back because I don't work for special interest. I work for you. So a lot of people will say that I went to Frankfurt and I made a lot of enemies. Well, that may be true, but it's the enemies in the special interest group. And that started when I started leading the fight against House Bill 5, the bourbon barrel tax. Myself and many of the county officials, I don't see a lot of them here, and other counties fought against that bourbon barrel tax. But honestly, the Kentucky Chamber and the bourbon industry was just too powerful. What else does people say about me that I don't go along to get along? Well, that's true. Going along to get along is why we're in a $35 trillion deficit. Going along to get along is why only 50% of our kids across the state can read at grade level. Going along and getting along is why we have pornographic books in many of our schools across the state. So no, I don't go along to get along. However, I have made many friends, and I've had many of the other legislators endorse me. They've been up here working, knocking doors with me. We've done a lot of good things in the 2 years I've been there. We've passed bills to stop. Okay.
So in between Mr. Stone doing his opening statement, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you want to do a public question, the sign-up sheet's right here. We're going to close that off shortly. So if you want to take a chance, or if you want to take the chance to sign up for a public comment or public question, please do so.
You want to continue to finish?
No, that's okay.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Andy Stone, and for those of you that do not know me, you can go to my website, andystone.org. It's got a lot of good videos that we've done concerning issues in this campaign. I'd like to thank Don and Thomas Nelson for putting this on. Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for Candy for being here as well. My lovely wife Terry's here with me. We've been just coming 39 years this July, so thanks. I see my son there as well, and family and friends, thanks for being here. Remember, we're not experts at debates, okay, so, and we also got to remember that we're all Republicans in this room, and that's very important for us. My story really starts back down on the farm. I was born and raised here. That's why I'm so passionate about this county. My parents were Depression-era folks, and they taught us some very hard rules and ethics, and specifically being very frugal with money. My early years, I went through all the education here in Nelson County. I graduated from Nelson County, had great teachers, went on to the University of Kentucky. I got a bachelor's degree in business, Air Force ROTC, got a pilot slot, went to pilot training for the United States Air Force, and I was very fortunate to get to fly the F-15 Eagle for over 3 years, and I was a T-38 trainer instructor as well after that. After those 8 years, we decided to come back to Nelson County to raise our family. I got a job with American Airlines. I've been there 32 and a half years. I'm a 737 captain, and I'm going to retire and be out of aviation after 41 years this summer. We started the business in '99, Keystone Summit, so we had some business experience over 23 years, and we had some good times with that. But unfortunately, streaming and COVID came together, and that was the end of that. And of course, I've been on the Bardstown Independent School District for over 12 years with a lot of experience. Tonight, we're going to have the opportunity for the public to understand the differences between Candy and myself, and why I think we need new leadership to lead our District 50 in the future. As many people have said, Ms. Massaroni is a very hard worker, and she's a nice lady, and she's a Christian woman, but that doesn't make her an effective legislator, and I hope to prove that to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to go ahead and grab these and give one to Paul. Is there anybody else who wants to sign up?
Forgot to say, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. There's no popcorn, sorry.
Okay, the first question is a life and death question. You're both on record as pro-life. To what extent do you believe in the right to life? In other words, are you in favor of exceptions? If so, what exceptions? As for the death penalty, or the death part, are you in favor of the death penalty? Candy. Go back to you.
I believe life begins at conception. I don't believe in exemptions right now, and I believe the current law we have, if the mother's life is in danger, she can have the procedure done in hospital. But God defines life, and He defines it at conception, so no, I'm not for any exemptions. As far as the death penalty, I think people make choices in their life, and I think I even proposed a bill, people that molest children or violent offenders that hurt children, I believe that they should be eligible for the death sentence, because right now we're in an epidemic of child predators and everything else. So I think there's exceptions. I'm not the jury and I'm not the judge, but I think there should be an option for the jury and the judge to decide if somebody does such a vile act, if they should have the option of the death penalty.
I too am pro-life, with no exceptions. As far as and I basically agree with everything Kenny said. As far as the death penalty, there are a lot of situations where there's gruesome crimes and things that need to be addressed. And again, I'm not the judge and the jury, but I am for the death penalty.
Thank you. There have been previous attempts to raise the gas tax. The gas tax has been flat for some time, and inflation has caused costs of road projects to skyrocket, and Kentucky is seemingly falling behind on maintenance. How would you work towards making sure our roads infrastructure is maintained?
Okay, I'm not in agreement with raising any taxes, as people are already struggling. And we've actually done that in the General Assembly this session. We took some of the general funds, the excess general funds, and we gave the county a lot of money to fix some of the roads, even the county roads. So I think the excess money that we have, instead of holding it as a state, we do need a surplus in case of emergency, but I think the excess money should be used on roadways and infrastructure.
Would you read the question again?
Yes, sir. There have been previous attempts to raise the gas tax. The gas tax has been flat for some time, and inflation has caused costs of road projects to skyrocket. And Kentucky is seemingly falling behind on maintenance. How would you work toward making sure our road infrastructure is maintained?
Well, as everyone knows, we're trying to move toward a zero income tax in the state of Kentucky. I'm told by Senator Hagan that is going to be difficult once we get down to the 2% thereabout range, because things that folks don't want to be taxed, like their pharmacy stuff and all that stuff is going to be taxed at some point because they're going to have to move, to get it all the way to zero, you're going to have to, basically anything that's consumed will have to be taxed, and that will be gasoline as well. I'm not sure, we could probably do some studies based on the surrounding states as far as what their levels of gas tax are and where they are with their road departments in terms of, I know another thing Mr. Hayden said at another previous situation is that we are way, way, way behind on paving our back roads and so on and so forth. And I agree with her in terms of, there's some largesse in terms of funds that are left over that we could use and utilize on our road funds. At some point, however, I think the gas tax will probably have to go up because it is a consumptive tax.
Thank you. Since Joe Biden has taken office, we have had what some are calling an invasion on our southern border, with fentanyl and other illicit drugs pouring in, as well as large number of Chinese nationals and other illegal immigrants. There has been discussion in Frankfurt about a possible bill requiring the governor to send the Kentucky National Guard to any state whose governor requests assistance to protect our border. What is your position on such a bill?
I actually voted yes on a resolution to have the governor address the issue on the border about the fentanyl and stuff coming into Kentucky. I've also fought a bill that's called to defend a guard. It's to keep our National Guard troops here at home and here in the states where they belong and not go to foreign wars that's not declared by the Constitution. So I think we should definitely support the border, but the only concerns I really have is giving another governor the authority over men and women in Kentucky. But I definitely, if it's going to prevent fentanyl and other things, I think we could work something out, but just not give total control to another governor of another state.
I'm for sending our troops down there to defend the border. I think that would be more of that would come under the jurisdiction of a federal situation, and they would not be governed by the state of Texas for that matter, if it came down to that. But of course, I don't want to send them. You're talking about sending the troops to foreign battles or whatever. This is basically right along our border. So yeah, I am for that. Does that answer the question? Is that what you're asking me? Yeah.
30 seconds.
I don't
more
wanna-
rebuttal.
So right now, if people send in the states that send in their troops to Texas, they're falling under the Texas governor because the Biden administration has refused. So the states are actually paying for those to be deployed, not the federal government, so.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying that if the federal government took jurisdiction over it, they would supersede the Texas authority there, so they would take over the authority of those troops.
Thank you. A very important question is the Second Amendment right to bear arms. So-called red flag laws have been bounced around in Frankfurt. Most conservative Republicans in Kentucky feel red flag laws infringe on their Second Amendment rights. To what extent do you feel the language in the U.S. Constitution stating the right to bear arms shall not be infringed should be applied? And would you oppose red flag laws?
I think the Constitution is clear that we have a right to bear arms. I have supported legislation to get rid of gun-free zones. I've sponsored it, or co-sponsored it, and voted for it. So the right to bear arms is the right to bear arms, and it's clearly stated in the Constitution. So no, I would definitely never vote for a red flag law.
Well, we once again are in agreement. I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm definitely against red flag laws, and that pretty much says it all.
There has been an ongoing debate about the 2020 presidential election being stolen through election fraud. Do you feel it was a legitimate election, and what would you do at the state level to ensure election integrity?
I don't think Joe Biden got as many votes as they say he has, and I think there are some questions in our elections. I have filed legislation, and legislation that I have filed has been incorporated in other bills requiring not using student IDs, not using credit cards, because those are a big method of fraud. I'm against the mass mail-out ballots where anybody can fill them out, and I'm against ballot harvests, and I have supported and filed legislation myself to prevent those.
Well, I'm pro-Trump all the way. I wanted him to be president, not President Biden. I don't buy into conspiracy theories. I think that it went through the courts properly and they vetted that appropriately. I think there are measures that we can do going forward to make sure that that transparency is there and that we're ensured of a fair election.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the public questions. The ground rules are, the question has to be directed, or can't be directed to just one candidate. The same question has to go, it has to be one question directed at both candidates. So in other words, you can't single out, like, say, Andy, what's your position? It has to go, the question has to be stated to go to both. We're going to start out with Mackenzie Downs.
My name is Mackenzie. I go to Thomas Nelson High School and I'm a member of the Education Club. And my question for you is, what are your thoughts about House Bill 2 and the constitutional amendment for allocating funding for private schools?
Thank you, Mackenzie. I am in favor of House Bill 2. I voted on it on the floor, and I will be voting yes on the ballot in November. I think parents have a right to have a say-so in what goes on in their education. If public schools if a school is not providing the adequate education for a child, that child only has one chance to learn how to read and write. So I think the parents should absolutely be in control of their children's education.
As you know, I'm on the school board for Bardstown, so this public versus private education question really, I will vote yes for referendum 2. I think, and when the money, what will happen after that happens and it does become a law, they will enact what they call enabling legislation the following year. That legislation will be critical, and I really think that what we'll see where most of these things will happen will be in Kenton, Jefferson, and Fayette County. We won't see much of it trickle down to the smaller counties, I don't think. But one thing that I think needs to be very clear is that this SEEK money that will now become voucher money, okay, that's going to go to private institutions. So there's not quite enough transparency for my liking. For example, say they put a new charter school or a private school out here in Deatsville. Okay, and now you're going to take that money with you, that former SEEK money that's now a voucher. Okay, you're going to take that and that's going to be your child's education money. But oh wait, it's a private institution and they're in it to make a buck. Okay, these places that are going to open, they are businesses that are looking for a bottom line. So they're, one of the things I say about public education, we have a very large basket of people that we take care of, special needs, kids with gap scores, things like that. And these schools will not generally seek out those folks. They're going to try to take the cream of the crop. And so that is very, very critical thing to think about with private and charter schools.
Do I get another one or
30 seconds.
Okay, I think school choice. I think every parent should have, everybody pays taxes. Everybody has the right to use that money to send their child where it best benefits their child. School choice will not deplete the public schools at all. It will provide competition, I believe, free market. If a school is not performing, the parents will have an option to send their child to another school.
And I've said in previous outings that, at the Bardstown School District, we're about competition, and I say bring it on. So if people want choice, I think we have great choice here in this county. We have 2 school districts, plus we have the parochial school system. And we've done so many innovative things with our school system since, I guess I'm done with my 30 seconds, sorry.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you, Mackenzie, for that question. It's good to see young people involved in politics and asking questions like that. Next one is Haley Braun.
Haley Braun.
Actually, y'all have 15 after I raise my hand.
Okay.
15 seconds.
Gotcha.
I don't have my glasses on, so you have to raise it high.
You know what I mean?
Hi, my name is Haley Braun. I'm also a Thomas Nelson student and a member of the Education Club. My question for you is, what do you see as the impact of House Bill 2 on school choice for special education students?
Again, I think it could actually benefit special education students. Regardless, whatever school that the child goes to, they will have to follow the Americans with Disability Act. If you look at Florida, they actually have grants for children with special needs, and they were doing fabulous. The kids are scoring at the top of the charts, and they're providing excellent service for children with disability.
Well, quite frankly, I disagree with all that because special needs require a lot of times special equipment, special facilities, and these things pull from the bottom line. And what we keep forgetting is the people that are in these, going to open these institutions, they're in it for a profit, and they're not going to take on the folks that are going to drain the money from the bank. So I disagree with that completely.
Currently,
You were 30 seconds.
right, in the last year and a half, we just got the data, over 25,000 students have left public schools for one reason or another. Those parents are now having to take their money and pay tuition to private schools, home schools, charter schools, or whatever to, am I done? Okay.
15 seconds.
So they're having to pay their taxes for public schools, plus pay for their child's education. I just think that there's better ways. And I'm not against public education. There's been, okay.
Well, actually, she is against public education because she says it needs to be gutted. And somebody said, well, she took that out of context. I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up on a farm and we had to, slaughter our own hogs. And I know what gutted means in my context, and it means there's nothing left. So that's my 30 seconds.
Do I get 30 seconds again? Okay. Actually, Jim Brooks is sitting there, and we was in an interview together. Jim Brooks said he asked the question, if public education could be gutted by school choice. And I said, if a school is failing, it should be gutted. Absolutely. If a child cannot read or write, that school is failing that child. I never said unless it's failing. I would love to see this video because you said you watched it, but there's absolutely either you're lying or you're
Time. Okay, next up is Jim Whiteman.
It's a good thing I don't have 30 seconds.
I'll give you a minute. Give him 30 seconds.
My name is Jim Whitehead, and I'd like to thank both of you for doing this because I know this is a real service to our community, so I just want to thank you for doing this. Just one quick question. Have either of your campaigns received any PAC money outside of Nelson County? And if the answer is yes, could you elaborate? Thank you.
I do not take PAC money.
As of yet, I have not received it, but I have gotten an endorsement for the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, and I'm expecting the endorsement for the Kentucky Realtors. I do expect to get that PAC money. As far as, so that's the end of the question, I forgot already.
Just basically a listing of whoever you would.
Those two are the only ones. Yeah, and while I'm on that subject, there was some money that was sent to an organization in Louisville that I've gone over and over on the internet as far as what that's all about. It was unsolicited on our behalf, but essentially the organization was for basically not so much for me as they were against candy. So you got to remember, folks, it's First Amendment out there. They can be for or against anybody they want to be.
If the Jefferson County Teachers Union, the most liberal organization in Kentucky, is against me, I take that as the greatest endorsement I could ever have.
Okay, next up is Paul Hagan.
Paul Hagan.
Yeah, Andy, I want to know what makes you think you're better than Candy? What makes you think you're a better candidate than her?
You can't direct, has to be to both candidates. The question has to be directed to both candidates.
Okay, I know what Candy's answer is, but Candy, what makes you think you're better than Andy?
I think an effective legislator, we'll hear a lot that I didn't pass a lot of legislation or this or that, and it's not true. I've actually worked and got a lot of my amendments added to other people's legislation because the establishment didn't exactly want me to be successful, and some of the establishment locally did not want me to be successful. But I was able to work with many people to get legislation through. I think what a legislator is not about passing legislation. It's to prevent tyranny on you guys. It's to prevent overreach from the state and federal government. So my job is to uphold the Constitution, Christian values, which is the main thing for me, and to prevent the overreach of the government, which is more evident every day.
Well, I do disagree with you on that, Candy. Basically, you're sent to represent the county, HD 50 at Frankfurt, and you've been a poor voice, a poor advocate for our county. In a lot of ways, I think I can do, I've worn a lot of hats, had a lot of leadership situations in my life. I think, I'm born and raised here, I'm passionate about this county, and I love all the communities that are in it. I believe I'll be able to address and be for a broader constituency. I think you have a very narrow constituency. And yes, I will have give access and meetings to PACs and lobbyists and industry that want to bring business and money into our county. So that's the difference between us.
I do my 30 seconds. Am I allowed to?
Yes.
So every bill I have filed this year has been a constituent bill. I have filed a bill to eliminate or reduce the property taxes for seniors. I have filed bills to get your houses cleaned up for the bourbon mold that's on your houses. Every bill I have filed has been for the constituents, not one lobbyist bill. I don't represent the lobbyists. I'm happy to work with organizations to bring them into Nelson County, but you people come first.
As I understand it, your record on the Capitol Hill there is that you do not take meetings with anybody other than the local people of Nelson County. You don't take meetings with businesses that want to come into Nelson County, any kind of industry, or any kind of lobbyist, which I think makes you a poor politician.
I don't take meetings with the Kentucky Chamber because the Kentucky Chamber is the one that pushed the bourbon barrel tax through. I don't take meetings with organizations that's aiming to hurt you, but I have been around many people, meeting with many businesses. I've met, and even the local officials to help provide businesses and opportunities.
So for the next question, we'll start with you. I'd like to go back and forth on who answers first, if that's possible.
Oh, I don't, yeah.
Okay. Dolly Goodman.
Do you stand for and will you co-sponsor a bill protecting our children in schools from sexual materials?
I couldn't hardly hear her, but would you say it again, please?
Speak up a little, please.
Do you stand for and would you co-sponsor bills protecting our children in schools from sexual material?
When you say sexual material, is that pornographic material?
Books.
Books.
Yes.
There are
and if you want adults gyrating their hips and dance porn in front of our children.
I'm not clear exactly on what you're saying, but I will say at the Barstow School District, there are a certain number of books that are only allowed in the high school grades and above. And as I told one constituent that was asking me about it, I said, I guess initially they said, are you allowing that stuff in middle school? And I said, no, sir. And when I got to looking into it, there were some books that had been brought into the library that had been vetted by professional sources. And I told him, I said, we can't keep blinders on our children their entire life. When they come out of high school, they have to be ready for the world that they're going to live in. So that was my approach to it. And so I would, that question that you're asking is a little loaded. I'd have to know more fine details about what exactly your definitions of are for a sexual book, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I have co-sponsored legislation to get the pornographic materials out of school. I don't think a school is an environment for that such of items. If a parent wants their child to read that book, they can purchase it or go to the library and get it. But why are we introducing children? what makes you the authority to have material that parents could or could not be aware of that our children can read? I would love to pull up some of these books and let you read it out loud to the audience.
Well, what I will say, and I did check as far as how the administration handles this, if a parent has a problem with a specific book or a title, the librarian can mark it in such a way that the child will not have access to it.
But does the parents even know it's there until the child brings it home and has read the material?
I can't answer that question.
You've been on the school board for 12 years, so it's probably not addressed as 2 years ago.
Well, last time I checked, I'm not the librarian, and we have professionals that run the school. We put our trust in them, the administration, and they take care of that stuff.
And I put my trust in parents.
Next up is Kim Wright.
I actually have the script from the video that was discussed earlier. Bradford and Brooks on May 13th, 2022 is the video we're talking about. And if you go to the 16-minute mark, you will see that Jim Brooks was speaking and his direct words were, "Now critics of having the money follow the kids will say it'll financially gut the public schools. What are your thoughts on that concern?" And Kenny's response, word for word, "Well, if the public schools are failing, maybe they need to be gutted." So honestly, we have amazing teachers. We do. We have absolutely amazing teachers. But they're being stifled by school administrators and KEA. So if the schools need to be gutted, so be it. I mean, what's the best for our children? What's best for our future? So that's what I think, and I will fight for that, and that's at the 16.52-minute mark. That's exactly what was said. So, yes, I do have a question. So my question is, do you still feel this way, Ms. Candy? Because this was your opinion before. They can both answer. This was your opinion before you were elected, because this was May of 2022, you were not elected. So what is your opinion about the failing schools? And what should be done?
My opinion hasn't changed. You know, they're trying to paint me as an anti-school, I hate public schools. Some of the legislation I thought was to give teachers an extra paycheck for the year. I thought legislation to give the teachers more tax credits. We do have amazing teachers, and we should allow them to teach. We shouldn't put all this extra stuff on them. We have a lot of ridiculous things that come down from the KEA, even the legislator, that don't need to be on the teachers. No, I haven't changed my mind. I think it's about the students, and then the teachers, and then all the bureaucrats can come next.
Well, I'm not sure how that question necessarily is directed at me, because you're asking about her opinion. But I thought she made her opinion quite clear at the Lincoln dinner a couple of weeks ago, because I mentioned the part that she wanted the schools to be gutted, and she stood up and applauded that fact. So it was very clear to me that she was doubling down on her decision to say that the schools needed to be gutted.
I stood up and clapped because you were so ridiculous in making false accusations that it was just comical.
You said it.
No
I didn't
comment.
say it.
Okay, next up, Andrea Hopper.
Okay, good evening. Okay, these days, there are so many people who are rhinos who pretend that they are Republicans, but in fact, their actions show that they're not. Okay, so my question is, what do you consider a conservative to be? Because there are so many out there who pretend like they are, but they're not.
Good question.
Well, a rhino is an
Oh, haircut turned off. Battery's dead.
Here, I got my batteries.
Sorry, battery's dead.
This one? I'll fix this one.
Thanks.
Hello. So the Rhino, for those that aren't acclimated, is Republican in name only. I'm second, pro-Second Amendment, pro-choice. I am a Republican. I am a conservative Republican. And Ms. Massaroni has voted 6 times in this session alone with the Democrat liberals. She voted against her own party's budget. She doubled down, I hate to use that twice, but she actually supported the governor's veto of her own party's budget. She's lost the, she talks about having some of her contemporaries for her. There's 80 in the caucus, and she has 40 that she says are behind her. Well, that means that's 50%. So 50% of her peers are already against her after 16 months in office. She's lost the confidence of the leadership. They're not going to allow her to carry any important legislation. That's what happens when you join a team. They hand you the ball and you give the ball to the other team. So, no, I'm not a Rhino. I am a Republican. You said, am I a Rhino? And I am not. I'm sorry, what is the question now? I'm sorry.
The question is, what do you consider a conservative?
I consider a conservative someone who does not vote with the liberals.
So yes, I did vote with the Democrats some, for the matter of fact that the budget that we passed had some things to increase some taxes. Some of it was probably unconstitutional. So no, I'm not going to vote for tax raises. And when I have voted with the Democrats, it's because the legislation is unconstitutional. That's the definition of a true conservative. You vote no matter what your party lines. You say leadership would not let me pass the bill, but guess what? I did pass bills. I got donations from these people that you say are not that's against me. I just got 2 checks from 2 people in leadership this week supporting me. The reason one of the local bureaucrats and one of the main people up there don't like me is because I tried to change the rules. I tried to make it where we could actually have time to read the bills. And if there's something wrong with that, there's something wrong with that.
I forgot where we are. Oh, I know I was going to bring up this. So you say you voted against, with the Democrats. Yeah, you voted with them 12 times. You voted no, and 6 times it was a no vote. So that's really 18 times. Once again, I think that pretty much says it all. And your question is, what proves that you're a Rhino or not? To me, you're voting with the liberals. That's what's telling you whether you're a true conservative.
We have a problem when we have Democrats more conservative than some of the rhinos in office. If a bill is not constitutional, if I can't read a bill, I'm not voting on it. If you can call me what you want, but there's a lot of things that go on in Frankfurt that you're not obviously aware of. We have 90% of the legislation that we passed this year in Frankfurt. Guess what? It's from lobbyists and special interest groups. It does nothing to benefit one person in this stadium. So no, I will vote against stuff that's going to hurt any of my constituents or it's going to hurt Kentucky. It's going to help it's going to help lobbyists.
Once again, she's been on the Hill and I have not, but as I understand it, House rules are determined every session and they're voted in by a majority, which still means something to me. This group, and specifically, they wanted individual control and extraordinary things that weren't practical to conduct the business of the legislature, and it would have led to chaos. They were just trying to keep business working, so it would be not an operational disaster, actually.
I'm not a good old boy. I will do what's best. If throwing a little fit to try to get the rules changed, do you know that we don't have time to read bills? Do you know that they will put a 132-page amendment into a House sub and bring it straight to the floor? What would you do in that situation? Would you vote yes for it even though you didn't read it?
I would not. I have to read the bill.
That's what you did.
That's just what I'm doing.
Mary Kroom Spalding.
Hello, my name is Mary Crum Spalding, and most of what I have decided, or what I wanted to ask you all about, had to deal with the proposed constitutional amendment number 2 that's coming up in the fall, formerly House Bill 2. And both of you have said you will, in fact, vote for that constitutional amendment. And the young ladies in the Education Collab covered some of the things I wanted to cover. So I guess I'm going to fall back on this question. Since if that is passed, it would allow the use of public funds to be spent on private, including religious schools, through the use of vouchers. Does this violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of our federal Constitution? Why or why not? Because, are you familiar with that, or do you need, okay.
No, it will not, but it will take a constitutional amendment to allow public funds to go to private schools. We send public funds to private organizations every day, welfare, KIA. There's tons of public money that goes to private organizations. My concern is over what is best for the children. And if a religious school is best for the child, I think they should have that option.
Spalding, are you talking specifically about separation of church and state?
I'm talking specifically about the separation of church and state. Yes, sir.
It may, and that may be something that might be struck in the Supreme Court. I'm not sure what progress or what will happen after that referendum is passed. So there might be lawsuits against it, I'm not sure. But another thing that you said there, Pike, something else I wanted to say about, when the voucher goes through and they're talking about giving the money to follow the child to the new school, they had not included in their calculations the people that are already in private schools, the parochial schools and so on and so forth. And that's another $200 to $300 million that we're going to have to come up with. And guess what? That's going to come out of your pocket, and your pocket, and your pocket.
Next question goes to James McBride. James McBride. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have trouble reading.
Hello. My question's about the Jefferson County Teachers Association. They've got the Better Schools of Kentucky. They gave $300,000. I like what you said about we're all Republicans, but are we? Because they put up $300,000 to go against setting Republicans. And I was just wondering if any of you all has benefited from that money.
I absolutely have not benefited, and actually it's more than that now. I was checking out KREF, the Kentucky Chamber. I love the local chamber, but the Kentucky Chamber just donated $200,000 to it as well. And I'm proud you got endorsed by it, because I don't want their endorsement either. There was another, Churchill Downs is another one that just put $200,000 into that organization. So when you start seeing mailers about how horrible we are from the conservative coalition, that's the pact that they made, just remember, the Kentucky Chamber's president, brother, Jay Cox, is getting $10,000 a month to consult on that. So there's a lot of dark money going in that organization against Republicans like myself and other conservatives across the state.
Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm a proud member of, I've always been a proud member of the local Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also proud that the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has chosen me because I am pro-business all the way. Thank you very much. As far as this money, I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to say it one more time. This money, a friend of mine called me early one morning a couple weeks ago, says, do you know anything about the such and such coalition giving money to the, I think it's betterschools.org. I said, nope, I never heard of either one of them. Where's this all coming from? Well, someone sent me a piece of paper that said they put $25,000 in your account. And I said, well, that's funny. I'd like to get on the treasurer about that. He said, who's the treasurer? I said, me. I said, I don't know anything about that money. But seriously, we did not receive one dime in our campaign chest from any other organization like that. Now, as I said before, it's their First Amendment right to be for, and if you look at the box that's on that official document for the KREF, it says in there specifically, they don't care whether you like them, you don't like them, who you're for or who you're against. They can spend their money any way they want to per the First Amendment. And in this case, they're not so much for me as they are against Candy Massaroni.
It's funny, on that sheet of paper, it don't say against Candy Massaroni, it says for Andy Stone.
Well, tomato, if they're supporting me, that means they're against you.
And again, I'm proud of that, proud of it.
I owe Matthew Cooper an apology. I skipped over his name. I'm sorry. Matthew
Cooper, he apologizes, he skipped over the name.
I'm sorry.
Strike my question, it's already been answered.
I apologize. Okay, next is Janelle Carter.
Janelle Carver.
Hello, I just wanted to say I had 3 questions and they were answered. I want to thank both of you for your military service to our great country.
Hold on just 1 second. We want to be able to get the recorders, what you said. Hold on just 1 second. Can you repeat that?
My 3 questions have been answered, and I want to thank you too for your military service to our great country.
Next up is Kevin Clements.
My question is, what's your take on what social emotional learning is, and what's your take on what it is, and what's your stance on it?
Social emotional learning is a necessary tool for our schools, and folks, we get caught up in these labels. Okay, social emotional learning is one of them. It can also be called character education. Essentially, and it's funny, I had somebody on the internet say, back in 57 when I went to school, they taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I thought to myself, I wish we could all go back to Mayberry, but we can't. All right, and seriously, the kids today, they can't get to the reading, writing, and arithmetic unless they have this social emotional learning. It teaches them what we always call the golden rule: tolerance, how to get along with others, having good manners, that type of stuff. And not only that, it's also very essential for the special education folks. Just for an example, the autistic folks, they have a lot of barriers that they have to get past, and social emotional learning is an incredible tool. It also enables us to help them in their mental health. There are markers that people that are trained with social emotional learning that are aware and looking for, and they can see childhood trauma, which is a key term used in mental health, and generational childhood trauma, and trying to prevent that. So I'm for it 100%. It has to be in our schools. You can label it anything that you would like.
Social emotional learning is a $64 billion organization. In 2020, CASEL, the standard bearer for social emotional learning, turned into a program called Transformative Social Emotional Learning. The Transformative Social Emotional Learning is not in all the schools, but it's becoming more and more prevalent in all the schools. It is the Transformative Social Emotional Learning is CRT, it's race-based, it's everything that I stand against. I think it should be eliminated. And another thing, most teachers hate it. They don't want it. I've talked to 20, 30 teachers. Teachers are not psychologists. They're supposed to be teachers. Let's let them teach instead of spending hours a day, a week, or whatever trying to diagnose kids' mental health problems. And all this is doing is making our kids more depressed. Here at their children are depressed constantly. They're suicidal. This is not helping the social emotional learning. Let's take all this, give it back to the parents where it belongs, and take off the pressure off the teachers teaching this ridiculous stuff. I never had $64 billion, to teach me on how to be nice and to have manners, and I'm sure none of you all did that.
Well, I wish the world was as you said it is, but unfortunately there are good parents and bad parents out there, and we have a lot of folks, and another thing, as we said with public schools, we have our arms around a big basket of issues, okay? Not just, one child or your 3 children. We have 2,600 children or better in our school district, and there are a lot of separate issues and needs that need to be addressed. And sometimes it has to be a one-size-fits-all. I know there are some times when things like that don't necessarily need to be taught to a certain student.
He can go ahead. He can finish.
to a certain student or an individual, but overall, we're very blessed to have the folks that we have trained in social emotional learning, and we've had great success with it. And it is not wokeism or CRT, which I am, by the way, against.
Our schools are not for social experiments, social institutions. I know your campaign manager is over the SEL program at Bardstown, and I'm sure he's fed you a lot of stuff. But again, I addressed this over a year ago, and I sent it to all the board members, and the superintendent, he got back with me. He let me go through the curriculum. I told the principal what I didn't like in the curriculum. However, you say people's telling you what it is. It's not. You need to do your research. Look and see, where's social motor, so who is the main profiter of social emotional learning? It's
The child. The child is.
It's not the child.
Yes, it is.
It's Merrick Garland's son-in-law who is the main guy that sends out the curriculum.
No, you're grouping SEL in with the program, and that is not it.
You're not you cannot answer.
Social emotional learning, transformative social emotional learning is a form of CRT.
Tomato. I disagree with you completely.
Next up is Valerie Meyer.
I encourage the audience to go and look up transformative social emotional learning.
Some of us have, and we know.
During the recent medical crisis termed the COVID-19 pandemic, medical professionals lost their jobs for refusing vaccinations or speaking about the dangers of mRNA technology, and that was the military also. Some private employers and federal agencies required the vaccinations or the employees would face termination. I was told by our former representative at the time here in Nelson County, Representative McCoy, that as an employer, he had the right to require his employees be vaccinated or face termination. In a conversation with Representative Jason Nemes at the Capitol, the same sentiment was echoed. Do either of you agree that an employer, whether private or government, has the right to demand medical vaccinations or any other medical procedure of an employee, or the said employee be terminated for refusal?
Government, I'm a good soldier. If my superior says take it, I'm going to take it, and because that's how discipline is maintained, and that's how we roll in the military. That's my opinion. Civilian, it depends. It depends on what part of society you're talking about. Are you talking about hospital type personnel, school personnel? It would really depend on the specific situation. There are some that I think, yes, very much so, you have to take the vaccination because, first of all, you're setting an example, so on and so forth. There are certain situations that maybe you don't have to do that I don't think it would be required by the employer.
Your constitutional rights should not be infringed. You should never have to take a vaccine that you don't want. I'm speaking as a military member who was vaccine injured from the anthrax. I got medically retired because of anthrax vaccine. If I had the choice to do that again, absolutely not. I'm speaking as somebody that lost my job because I refused to the government to make me do another vaccine. So no, I don't think anybody has the right to force vaccinations on anyone, especially your children. And I know there was a lot of talk on different vaccines, but I think if a parent don't want to get a child or anybody vaccinated, they shouldn't have to be vaccinated.
Well, once again, I disagree. There are always exceptions to that. But I know from myself, they made us take a flu vaccine every year when I was in the military, and I hated it because I got sick every time. But like I said, I'm a good soldier, and I did what I was told.
And I was a fabulous soldier too, but unfortunately I spent 3 months in a hospital in Germany because of a vaccine.
Bobby Coleman. Bobby Coleman.
This goes good with the last comment here. What do you think about representatives having their committees taken away because they refuse to vote the way leadership tells them? Would you cave to the pressure of leadership as you said, the good old boy, or stand up to stand up for your constituents and your principles?
You know, a lot of people got their committees taken away last year, and it was just because they stood up for parental rights and against gender mutilation. Leadership did not like it. They did not like being called out. So it was wrong, and I don't think anybody, when you punish a legislator, they represent their constituents. You're punishing a whole constituency. So no, I don't think leadership has the authority to take people's rights of their constituents' voices away.
Well, I haven't been there, so I'm not sure how that structure works as far as setting up the committees and so on and so forth. All I know is that you, for leadership to allow you to carry important legislation, you got to prove that you're a team player, and Ms. Massaroni has shown that time and time again that she is not. So in the future, she will not be a good representative of this county because she cannot be trusted with important legislation.
Let's talk about some of the legislation I was able to get passed. I was able to get Ian's alert passed. It's an Amber Alert for autistic children. I was able to get a bill passed about animal rights and the rights of service animals and property owners. I was able to get legislation to bring a regional office in here into Nelson County. We got authorized for 4 regional driver's license offices. That was my legislation. You know what? I gave it to other people to run because I knew how horrible and egotistical a couple people are. So that made me actually work better because I was able to work with multiple legislators to get things through and not the good old boys.
As I've said in the past, her record this session shows she's had 58 bills she sponsored or co-sponsored, 38 of which are stuck in what's called committee on committee. It's basically no man's land. And she had one specific bill that she sponsored that got across the finish line. Her contemporary next door, who I've never met, don't know the person, he's over in, Ms. Wright, do you have something to say?
You didn't answer the question.
Ms. Wright, do you have something to say?
I'm shaking my head. You can't stop me from shaking my head.
What I would like to say is, Ms.
We can't let that happen, Don. You gotta stop that.
Come on, Don.
Find out, what he just did is inappropriate. You need, as the moderator, you need to stop this.
My apologies, Ms. Wright.
Just don't direct it to the audience.
I got you. My apologies.
We know, Don.
Basically, where I was going with that is, as Mr. Pollack next door, he had 17 out of 27. He had a 63% percentage rate of effectivity, okay? Ms. Massaroni had less than 2%. So the numbers don't lie, folks. If you want an effective representation in Frankfurt, it's not going to be her.
And you know, I actually talked to Mr. Pollack. I looked at his bills. Do you know what his bills was? His bills was banking and insurance bills and bills from the lobbyists. So I don't think most of my constituency cares about banking and insurance bills for lobbyists.
Banking and insurance may not be important to you personally, but they're important to industry that comes into our county. So that's pretty short-sighted in my opinion.
Okay, hold on just one second, because you all are kind of getting off track of what her question is, and that's bothering her. Just one second. So just one moment, please.
Okay, so you never said, would you cave to the pressure of leadership or stand up for the constituents and your principles?
I would never cave on my principles. Going into this job, politics is about choosing your battles, okay? There are some battles that you're probably not going to win, but maybe you don't win those because you're saving up for the battles that you really do want to win, but you never compromise your principles.
I've already answered.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Chris Culver.
First of all, I would like to thank both of you for being here tonight. It's not easy being up on that stage and being under the lights and having everybody ask these questions to you. So the questions can get tough, the answers can get tough. I appreciate when you guys go back and forth and it's a little heated because we get to see the real you in that. Also, before I ask my question, I want to thank the young people that are here. Fantastic, you guys being here. I love to see you guys learning this stuff and being involved. So thank you guys for doing this. Love to see more of that in the future. So parents, if you can get your kids to get involved in these types of things at school, it's fantastic. Because these kind of things really matter, not just to to people in Frankfurt, people in Washington, D.C. It matters to every single family in our communities. So that being said, one thing that frustrates me personally is that I actually have developed friendships with several legislators in our state. And I talk to them on a very regular basis, sometimes weekly, sometimes even more often than that. And through that, I've learned more and more about the corruption that happens in Frankfurt every day. Every single day, not just when it's in session, but throughout the year, this corruption is happening. So I know firsthand from these people that are experiencing it, some people that go along with it, some people that don't, and to what degree they do that, but I know where it comes from. So as conservatives, I think the vast majority of us want to run corruption completely out of Frankfurt. My question to both candidates, do you believe that lobbyists and super PACs are the sneaky route to that corruption, or are you just blind to that? Thank you.
Absolutely. We've actually filed legislation to prevent taxpayer-funded lobbies because, unbeknownst to many of you, you're paying for these lobbyists to influence legislation. So I think lobbyists, there should be a limit on lobbyists. There are good lobbyists that do good things. They're far and few between. But lobbyists and special interests are the majority of corruption, I think, in the state and federal government.
I agree with you on that. You can't put an umbrella and say all lobbyists and all super PACs are bad. I'm sure some are and some are not. So, and I'm not familiar with it enough to speak to it. But yeah, we need to run corruption out of Frankfurt, and I'd be for that 100%.
And it's really important to know, if you want to stand up to this corruption, that's when you start getting labels, like you don't go along or get along, or you this or that, you're not productive. Because you know what? The corruption fights back and the corrupt people fight back.
I agree with 100%.
Okay, next up is Steve Carter.
My question's been answered.
Thank you, Steve. Emmett Wood. Emmett Wood.
Yes, sir. I'm also retired Air Force, so I thank both you guys for your jobs in the Air Force. I can usually speak pretty loud.
I need to get on the camera.
Get on the camera. Again, I'm retired Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel, comm officer, so I thank both of you for your Air Force service. My biggest concern is most people will never meet you, never know you personally. They'll see positions change. We see that all the time. People change their positions on stuff. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you get more like educational, biographical information out there? Because I know I've looked at, especially statewide voting on people from wherever that I don't know, and I've got to vote, like for the treasurer of Kentucky, and the only thing I see is their education background and their job background, and they're going to base their vote purely on that. And I've looked at across the state at both of you. I've looked at the Legislative Research Commission stuff, and some of you have, or one of you has a lot of data out there, and the other one doesn't. So how would both of you address getting more information out there?
For myself, I do a community connect almost every month. I've been in every district in Nelson County at least twice. We probably do need to do a better job of getting it out. The paper publishes it for us. We put it on social media. So I try to stay connected with my constituents. My personal cell phone number is published in everything I do. It's on Facebook. So everybody's welcome to call. I try to get it back to everyone as soon as possible. So I think I'm pretty available. As for the statewide candidates, it probably is harder because they cover a whole state, but I think transparency is important, and I have been nothing but transparent through my time in the legislature.
Of course, none of mine will be listed on the government site. Of course, we have a Facebook page, or andystone.org. My full resume and basically everything that I've done is available for that. I did notice on multiple times doing research on the Kentucky LRC. You can go in there. It's actually a very good site. You can pick each candidate or each person that's already a representative and look at their bio. I did notice that for some reason this Massaroni's bio there's nothing there. Probably just an oversight, but that is the best. I think that's maybe what you're looking for, is finding out more about where they, how they started, where they're from, what schools they went to, etc.
Diana Starr.
Hi, thank you. My name is Diana Starr. Thank you, Don, for having us.
It seems like a lot of airing out, the constituents can find out exactly what's going on. I like that you brought up something, the doubling back. I was at the Nelson County dinner, and you were speaking of SEL as if you didn't know what it was. I'm going to bring that topic up again, and I have a reason. And the CDC website, and you said you're against CRT. CRT is listed under the umbrella of SEL. Social emotional learning should be taught at home by the parents and the way they do things. I had 2 ministers for parents. They taught me kindness. They didn't have to send me to school to do it. But what I'm saying, you're blowing more wind up there, sir. I have a question. Talking about what she does wrong and why she's doing it wrong, then tell us what you're going to do good. So my question, once again, is to clarify, what do you think SEL is? Because it's not what you're saying. And it also, you keep mentioning the word tolerance, and that gives me bad vibes about, are you for LGBTQ, transgender? So my question is are you, do you think a man is a man and a woman is a woman? Are you for LGBTQ, blah, blah, blah? And are you for transgender? And that's my question.
I think there's, in schools, there should be no, it should be about education. It should be no agendas pushed or anything else. When you're an adult, you can do what you want to. However, I actually had a bill that I gave another legislator to file, the definition of a woman. Just because we were having problems across the state in jails, having males going into women's prisons, which you can imagine that causes a lot of problems. So I'm a woman, I can define what a woman is, and I actually filed another representative file legislation on what a woman is.
For me, transgender is very, very simple. It's genetics, XXXY. What that is what you are. And I'm not a biologist or a scientist or a doctor. I'm against any person, and like she said, once you're, out on your own, you can have anything done to you, mutilate your body in any way you choose to do so, in my opinion. But gender comes down to your genetics. What's the chromosome say? And that's pretty much it. Did that answer your question?
That's all right.
Okay.
Charles Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Stone, you visited my house the other day, and I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you all being up here. And while you and I were having a conversation there on the front porch.
You've been on the school board for 12 years, so it's probably not addressed as 2 years ago.
Well, last time I checked, I'm not the librarian, and we are professionals that run the school. We put our trust in them, the administration, and they take care of that stuff.
And I put my trust in parents.
Next up is Kim Wright.
I actually have the script from the video that was discussed earlier. Bradford and Brooks on May 13th, 2022 is the video we're talking about. And if you go to the 16-minute mark, you will see that Jim Brooks was speaking, and his direct words were, "Now critics of having the money follow the kids will say it'll financially gut the public schools. What are your thoughts on that concern?" And Kenny's response, word for word, "Well, if the public schools are failing, maybe they need to be gutted." So honestly, we have amazing teachers. We do. We have absolutely amazing teachers, but they're being stifled by school administrators and KEA. So if the schools need to be gutted, so be it. I mean, what's the best for our children? What's best for our future? So that's what I think, and I will fight for that, and that's at the 16.52-minute mark. That's exactly what was said. So, yes, I do have a question. So my question is, Do you still feel this way, Ms. Candy? Because this was your opinion before. They can both answer. This was your opinion before you were elected, because this was May of 2022, you were not elected. So, what is your opinion about the failing schools? And what should be done?
My opinion hasn't changed. You know, they're trying to paint me as an anti-school, I hate public schools. Some of the legislation I thought was to give teachers an extra paycheck, an extra paycheck for the year. I thought legislation to give the teachers more tax credits. We do have amazing teachers, and we should allow them to teach. We shouldn't put all this extra stuff on them. We have a lot of ridiculous things that come down from the KEA, even the legislator, that don't need to be on the teachers. No, I haven't changed my mind. I think it's about the students, and then the teachers, and then all the bureaucrats can come next.
Well, I'm not sure how that question necessarily is directed at me, just because you're asking about her opinion. But I thought she made her opinion quite clear at the Lincoln dinner a couple of weeks ago, because I mentioned the part that she wanted the schools to be gutted, and she stood up and applauded that fact. So it was very clear to me that she was doubling down on her decision to say that the schools needed to be gutted.
I stood up and clapped because you were so ridiculous in making false accusations that it was just comical.
You said it.
No
I did
comment.
say it.
Okay, next up, Andrea Hopper.
Good evening. Okay, these days, there are so many people who are rhinos who pretend that they are Republicans, but in fact, their actions show that they're not. Okay, so my question is, what do you consider a conservative to be? Because there are so many out there who pretend like they are, but they're not.
Well, a rhino. Is it on?
Oh, here it got turned off. Battery's dead.
Here, I got down batteries.
Sorry, battery's dead.
This one? I'll fix this one.
Thanks.
Hello?
So the rhino, for those that aren't acclimated, is Republican in name only. I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-choice. I am a Republican. I am a conservative Republican. And Ms. Massaroni has voted 6 times in this session alone with the Democrat liberals. She voted against her own party's budget. She doubled down, I hate to use that twice, but she actually supported the governor's veto of her own party's budget. She's lost the, she talks about having some of her contemporaries for her. There's 80 in the caucus, and she has 40 that she says are behind her. Well, that means that's 50%. So 50% of her peers are already against her after 16 months in office. She's lost the confidence of the leadership. They're not going to allow her to carry any important legislation. That's what happens when you join a team. They hand you the ball and you give the ball to the other team. So, no, I'm not a rhino. I am a Republican. You said, am I a rhino? And I am not. I'm sorry, what is the question now? I'm sorry.
The question is, what do you consider a conservative?
I consider a conservative someone who does not vote with the liberals.
So yes, I did vote with the Democrats some, for the matter of fact that the budget that we passed had some things to increase some taxes. Some of it was probably unconstitutional. So no, I'm not going to vote for tax raises. And when I have voted with the Democrats, it's because the legislation is unconstitutional. That's the definition of a true conservative. You vote no matter what your party lines. You say leadership would not let me pass the bill, but guess what? I did pass bills. I got donations from these people that you say are not that's against me. I just got 2 checks from 2 people on leadership this week supporting me. The reason one of the local bureaucrats and one of the main people up there don't like me is because I tried to change the rules. I try to make it where we can actually have time to read the bills. And if there's something wrong with that, there's something wrong with that.
I forgot where we are. Oh, I know I was gonna bring up this, so you say you voted against, with the Democrats, yeah, you voted with them, 12 times you voted no, and 6 times it was a no vote. So that's really 18 times. Once again, I think that pretty much says it all. And your question is, what proves that you're a rhino or not? To me, you're voting with the liberals. That's what's telling you whether you're a true conservative.
We have a problem when we have Democrats more conservative than some of the rhinos in office. If a bill is not constitutional, if I can't read a bill, I'm not voting on it. If you can call me what you want, but there's a lot of things that go on in Frankfurt that you're not obviously aware of. We have 90% of the legislation that we passed this year in Frankfurt. Guess what? It's from lobbyists and special interest groups. It does nothing to benefit one person in this stadium. So no, I will vote against stuff that's going to hurt any of my constituents or it's going to hurt Kentucky. It's going to help it's going to help lobbyists.
Once again, she's been on the Hill and I have not, but as I understand it, House rules are determined every session and they're voted in by a majority, which still means something to me. This group, and specifically, they wanted individual control and extraordinary things that weren't practical to conduct the business of the legislature, and it would have led to chaos. They were just trying to keep business working, so it would be not an operational disaster, actually.
I'm not a good old boy. I will do what's best. If throwing a little fit to try to get the rules changed, do you know that we don't have time to read bills? Do you know that they will put a 132-page amendment into a House sub and bring it straight to the floor? What would you do in that situation? Would you vote yes for it even though you didn't read it?
I would not. I have to read the bill.
That's what you did.
That's just what I'm doing.
Mary Kroom Spalding.
Hello, my name is Mary Kroom Spalding, and most of what I have decided, or what I wanted to ask you all about, had to deal with the proposed constitutional amendment number 2 that's coming up in the fall, formerly House Bill 2. And both of you have said you will, in fact, vote for that constitutional amendment. And the young ladies in the Education Collab covered some of the things I wanted to cover. So I guess I'm going to fall back on this question. Since if that is passed, it would allow the use of public funds to be spent on private, including religious schools, through the use of vouchers. Does this violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of our federal Constitution? Why or why not? Because, are you familiar with that, or do you need? Okay.
No, it will not, but it will take a constitutional amendment to allow public funds to go to private schools. We send public funds to private organizations every day, welfare, KIA. There's tons of public money that goes to private organizations. My concern is over what is best for the children. And if a religious school is best for the child, I think they should have that option.
Ms. Spalding, are you talking specifically about separation of church and state?
I'm talking specifically about the separation of church and state.
Yes, ma'am. It may, and that may be something that might be struck in the Supreme Court. I'm not sure what progress or what will happen after that referendum is passed. So there might be lawsuits against it, I'm sure. I'm not sure. But another thing that you said there, something else I wanted to say about, when the voucher goes through and they're talking about giving the money to follow the child to the new school, they had not included in their calculations the people that are already in private schools, the parochial schools and so on and so forth. And that's another $200 to $300 million that we're going to have to come up with. And guess what? That's going to come out of your pocket, and your pocket, and your pocket.
Next question goes to James McBride. James McBride. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have trouble reading. Good.
question's about the Jefferson County Teachers Association. They've got the Better Schools of Kentucky. They gave $300,000. I like what you said about we're all Republicans, but are we? Because they put up $300,000 to go against setting Republicans. And I was just wondering if any of you all has benefited from that money.
I absolutely have not benefited, and actually, it's more than that now. I was checking out KREF, the Kentucky Chamber. I love the local chamber, but the Kentucky Chamber just donated $200,000 to it as well. And I'm proud you got endorsed by it, because I don't want their endorsement either. There was another, Churchill Downs is another one that just put $200,000 into that organization. So when you start seeing mailers about how horrible we are from the conservative coalition, that's the pact that they made, just remember, the Kentucky Chamber's president, brother, Jake Cox, is getting $10,000 a month to consult on that. So there's a lot of dark money going in that organization against Republicans like myself and other conservatives across the state.
Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm a proud member of, I've always been a proud member of the local Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also proud that the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has chosen me because I am pro-business all the way. Thank you very much. As far as this money, I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to say it one more time. This money, a friend of mine called me early one morning a couple weeks ago, says, do you know anything about the such and such coalition giving money to I think it's betterschools.org? I said, nope, I never heard of either one of them. Where's this all coming from? Well, someone sent me a piece of paper that said they put $25,000 in your account. And I said, well, that's funny. I'd like to get on the treasurer about that. And he said, who's the treasurer? I said, me. I said, I don't know anything about that money. But seriously, we did not receive one dime in our campaign chest from any other organization like that. Now, as I said before, it's their First Amendment right to be for, and if you look at the box that's on that official document for the KREF, it says in there specifically, they don't care whether you like them, you don't like them, who you're for or who you're against. They can spend their money any way they want to for the First Amendment. And in this case, they're not so much for me as they are against Candy Massaroni.
It's funny, on that sheet of paper, it don't say against Candy Massaroni, it says for Andy Stone.
Well, tomato, if they're supporting me, that means they're against you.
And again, I'm proud of that, proud of it.
I owe Matthew Cooper an apology. I skipped over his name. I'm sorry. Matthew
Cooper, he apologizes. He skipped over the name.
I'm sorry.
Track my question, it's already been answered.
I apologize. Okay, next is Janelle Carver.
Janelle Carver.
Hello, I just wanted to say I had 3 questions and they were answered. I want to thank both of you for your military service to our great country.
Hold on just one second. We want to be able to get the recorders, what you said. Hold on just one second. Can you repeat that?
My 3 questions have been answered, and I want to thank you too for your military service to our great country.
Next up is Kevin Clements.
My question is, what's your take on what social emotional learning is, and what's your take on what it is, and what's your stance on it?
Social emotional learning is a necessary tool for our schools, and folks, we get caught up in these labels. Okay, social emotional learning is one of them. It can also be called character education. Essentially, and it's funny, I had somebody on the internet say, back in '57 when I went to school, they taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I thought to myself, I wish we could all go back to Mayberry, but we can't. All right, and seriously, the kids today, they can't get to the reading, writing, and arithmetic unless they have this social emotional learning. It teaches them what we always call the golden rule: tolerance, how to get along with others, having good manners, that type of stuff. And not only that, it's also very essential for the special education folks. Just for an example, the autistic folks, they have a lot of barriers that they have to get past, and social emotional learning is an incredible tool. It also enables us to help them in their mental health. There are markers that people that are trained with social emotional learning that are aware and looking for, and they can see childhood trauma, which is a key term used in mental health, and generational childhood trauma and trying to prevent that. So I'm for it 100%. It has to be in our schools. You can label it anything that you would like.
Social emotional learning is a $64 billion organization. In 2020, CASEL, the standard bearer for social emotional learning, turned into a program called Transformative Social Emotional Learning. The Transformative Social Emotional Learning is not in all the schools, but it's becoming more and more prevalent in all the schools. It is the Transformative Social Emotional Learning is CRT, it's race-based, it's everything that I stand against. I think it should be eliminated. And another thing, most teachers hate it. They don't want it. I've talked to 20, 30 teachers. Teachers are not psychologists. They're supposed to be teachers. Let's let them teach instead of spending hours a day, a week, or whatever, trying to diagnose kids' mental health problems. And all this is doing is making our kids more depressed. Here at their children are depressed constantly. They're suicidal. This is not helping the social emotional learning. Let's take all this, give it back to the parents where it belongs, and take off the pressure off the teachers that teaching this ridiculous stuff. I never had $64 billion, I'm sorry, to teach me on how to be nice and to have manners. And I'm sure none of y'all did that.
Well, I wish the world was as you said it is, but unfortunately there are good parents and bad parents out there, and we have a lot of folks, and another thing, as we said with public schools, we have our arms around a big basket of issues, okay? Not just, one child or your 3 children. We have 2,600 children or better in our school district, and there are a lot of separate issues and needs that need to be addressed. And sometimes it has to be a one-size-fits-all. I know there are some times when things like that don't necessarily need to be taught to a certain student or
He can go ahead. He can finish.
to a certain student or an individual, but overall, we're very blessed to have the folks that we have trained in social emotional learning, and we've had great success with it. And it is not wokeism or CRT, which I am, by the way, against.
Our schools are not for social experiments, social institutions. I know your campaign manager is over the SEL program at Bardstown, and I'm sure he's fed you a lot of stuff. But again, I addressed this over a year ago, and I sent it to all the board members, and the superintendent, he got back with me. He let me go through the curriculum. I told the principal what I didn't like in the curriculum. However, you say people's telling you what it is. It's not. You need to do your research. Look and see, where's social motor, so who is the main profiter of social emotional learning? It's
The child. The child is.
It's not the child.
Yes, it is.
It's Merrick Garland's son-in-law who is the main guy that sends out the curriculum.
No, you're grouping SEL with the program, and that is not it.
You're not you cannot answer.
Social emotional learning, transformative social emotional learning is a form of CRT.
Tomato. I disagree with you completely.
Next up is Valerie Meyer.
I encourage the audience to go and look up transformative social emotional learning.
Some of us have, and we know.
During the recent medical crisis termed the COVID-19 pandemic, medical professionals lost their jobs for refusing vaccinations or speaking about the dangers of mRNA technology, and that was the military also. Some private employers and federal agencies required the vaccinations or the employees would face termination. I was told by our former representative at the time here in Nelson County, Representative McCoy, that as an employer, he had the right to require his employees be vaccinated or face termination. In a conversation with Representative Jason Nemus at the Capitol, the same sentiment was echoed. Do either of you agree that an employer, whether private or government, has the right to demand medical vaccinations or any other medical procedure of an employee, or the said employee be terminated for refusal?
Government, I'm a good soldier. If my superior says take it, I'm going to take it, and because that's how discipline is maintained, and that's how we roll in the military. That's my opinion. Civilian, it depends. It depends on what part of society you're talking about. Are you talking about hospital type personnel, school personnel? It would really depend on the specific situation. There are some that I think, yes, very much so, you have to take the vaccination because, first of all, you're setting an example, so on and so forth. There are certain situations that maybe you don't have to do that I don't think it would be required by the employer.
Your constitutional rights should not be infringed. You should never have to take a vaccine that you don't want. I'm speaking as a military member who was vaccine injured from the anthrax. I got medically retired because of the anthrax vaccine. If I had the choice to do that again, absolutely not. I'm speaking as somebody that lost my job because I refused the government to make me do another vaccine. So no, I don't think anybody has the right to force vaccinations on anyone, especially your children. And I know there was a lot of talk on different vaccines, but I think if a parent don't want to get a child or anybody vaccinated, they shouldn't have to be vaccinated.
Okay, well, once again, I disagree. There are always exceptions to that, but I know from myself, they made us take a flu vaccine every year when I was in the military, and I hated it because I got sick every time. But like I said, I'm a good soldier, and I did what I was told.
And I was a fabulous soldier too, but unfortunately I spent 3 months in a hospital in Germany because of a vaccine.
Bobby Coleman? Bobby Coleman?
This goes good with the last comment here. What do you think about representatives having their committees taken away because they refuse to vote the way leadership tells them? Would you cave to the pressure of leadership, as you said, the good old boy, or stand up for your constituents and your principles?
You know, a lot of people got their committees taken away last year, and it was just because they stood up for parental rights and against gender mutilation. Leadership did not like it. They did not like being called out. So it was wrong, and I don't think anybody, when you punish a legislator, they represent their constituents. You're punishing a whole constituency. So no, I don't think leadership has the authority to take people's rights, their constituents' voices away.
Well, I haven't been there, so I'm not sure how that structure works as far as setting up the committees and so on and so forth. All I know is that you, for leadership to allow you to carry important legislation, you got to prove that you're a team player, and Ms. Massaroni has shown that time and time again that she is not. So in the future, she will not be a good representative for this county because she cannot be trusted with important legislation.
Let's talk about some of the legislation I was able to get passed. I was able to get Ian's alert passed. It's an Amber Alert for autistic children. I was able to get a bill passed about animal rights and the rights of service animals and property owners. I was able to get legislation to bring a regional office in here into Nelson County. We got authorized for 4 regional driver's license office. That was my legislation. You know what? I gave it to other people to run because I knew how horrible and egotistical a couple people are. So that made me actually work better because I was able to work with multiple legislators to get things through and not the good old boys.
As I've said in the past, her record this session shows she's had 58 bills she sponsored or co-sponsored, 38 of which are stuck in what's called committee on committee. It's basically no man's land. And she had one specific bill that she sponsored that got across the finish line. Her contemporary next door, who I've never met, don't know the person, he's over in Ms. Wright, do you have something to say?
You didn't answer the
Ms. Wright, do you have something to say?
I will shake my head. You can't stop me from shaking my head.
What I would like to say is, Ms.
You gotta stop that.
Come on, Don.
Find out, what he just did is inappropriate. You need, as the moderator, you need to stop this.
My apologies, Ms. Wright.
Just don't direct it to the audience.
I got you. My apologies.
We know, Don.
Basically, where I was going with that is, as Mr. Pollack makes story, he had 17 out of 27. He had a 63% percentage rate of effectivity, okay? Ms. Massaroni had less than 2%. So the numbers don't lie, folks. If you want an effective representation in Frankfurt, it's not going to be her.
And you know, I actually talked to Mr. Pollack and I looked at his bills. Do you know what his bills was? His bills was banking and insurance bills and bills from the lobbyists. So I don't think most of my constituency cares about banking and insurance bills for lobbyists.
You know, banking and insurance may not be important to you personally, but they're important to industry that comes into our county. So that's pretty short-sighted in my opinion.
Okay, hold on just one second, because you all are kind of getting off track of what her question is, and that's bothering her. Just one second. So just one moment, please.
Okay, so you never said, would you cave to the pressure of leadership or stand up for the constituents and your principles?
I would never cave on my principles. You know, going into this job, politics is about choosing your battles, okay? There are some battles that you're probably not going to win, but maybe you don't win those because you're saving up for the battles that you really do want to win, but you never compromise your principles.
I've already answered.
Yeah. Okay, next up is Chris Culver.
First of all, I would like to thank both of you for being here tonight. It's not easy being up on that stage and being under the lights and having everybody ask these questions to you. So the questions can get tough, the answers can get tough. I appreciate when you guys go back and forth and it's a little heated because we get to see the real you in that. Also, before I ask my question, I want to thank the young people that are here. Fantastic, you guys being here. I love to see you guys learning this stuff and being involved. So thank you guys for doing this. Love to see more of that in the future. So parents, if you can get your kids to get involved in these types of things at school, it's fantastic. Because these kind of things really matter, not just to people in Frankfurt, people in Washington, D.C. It matters to every single family in our communities. So that being said, you know, one thing that frustrates me personally is that I actually have developed friendships with several legislators in our state. And I talk to them on a very regular basis, sometimes weekly, sometimes even more often than that. And through that, I've learned more and more about the corruption that happens in Frankfurt every day. Every single day, not just when it's in session, but throughout the year, this corruption is happening. So I know firsthand from these people that are experiencing it, some people that go along with it, some people that don't, and to what degree they do that. But I know where it comes from. So as conservatives, I think the vast majority of us want to run corruption completely out of Frankfurt. My question to both candidates, do you believe that lobbyists and super PACs are the sneaky route to that corruption, or are you just blind to that? Thank you.
Absolutely. We've actually filed legislation to prevent taxpayer-funded lobbyists because, unbeknownst to many of you, you're paying for these lobbyists to influence legislation. So I think lobbyists, there should be a limit on lobbyists. There are good lobbyists that do good things. They're far and few between. But lobbyists and special interests are the majority of corruption, I think, in the state and federal government.
I agree with you on that. You can't put an umbrella and say all lobbyists and all super PACs are bad. I'm sure some are and some are not. So, and I'm not familiar with it enough to speak to it. But yeah, we need to run corruption out of Frankfurt, and I'd be for that 100%.
And it's really important to know, if you want to stand up to this corruption, that's when you start getting labels, like you don't go along or get along, or you this or that, you're not productive. Because you know what? The corruption fights back and the corrupt people fight back.
I agree with 100%.
Okay, next up is Steve Carter.
My question's been answered.
Thank you, Steve. Emmett Wood, Emmett Wood.
Yes, sir. I'm also retired Air Force, so I thank both you guys for your jobs in the Air Force. I can usually speak pretty loud.
I need to get on the camera.
Get on the camera. Again, I'm retired Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel, comm officer, so I thank both of you for your Air Force service. My biggest concern is most people will never meet you, never know you personally. They'll see positions change. We see that all the time. People change their positions on stuff. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you get more like educational, biographical information out there? Because I know I've looked at, especially statewide voting on people from wherever that I don't know, and I've got to vote, like for the treasurer of Kentucky, and the only thing I see is their education background and their job background, and they're going to base their vote purely on that. And I've looked at across the state at both of you. I've looked at the Legislative Research Commission stuff, and some of you have, or one of you has a lot of data out there, and the other one doesn't. So how would both of you address getting more information out there?
For myself, I do a community connect almost every month. I've been in every district in Nelson County at least twice. We probably do need a better job of getting it out. The paper publishes it for us. We put it on social media. So I try to stay connected with my constituents. My personal cell phone number is published in everything I do. It's on Facebook. So everybody's welcome to call. I try to get it back to everyone as soon as possible. So I think I'm pretty available. As for the statewide candidates, it probably is harder because they cover a whole state, but I think transparency is important, and I have been nothing but transparent through my time in the legislature.
Of course, none of mine would be listed on the government site. Of course, we have a Facebook page, or andystone.org. My full resume and basically everything that I've done is available for that. I did notice on multiple times doing research on the Kentucky LRC. You can go in there. It's actually a very good site. You can pick each candidate or each person that's already a representative and look at their bio. I did notice that for some reason this Massaroni's bio there's nothing there. Probably just an oversight, but that is the best. I think that's maybe what you're looking for, is finding out more about where they, how they started, where they're from, what schools they went to, etc.
Diana Starr.
Hi, thank you. My name is Diana Starr. Thank you, John, for having this. It seems like a lot of airing out. The constituents can find out exactly what's going on. I like that you brought up something, the doubling back. I was at the Nelson County dinner, and you were speaking of SEL as if you didn't know what it was. I'm going to bring that topic up again, and I have a reason. And the CDC website, and you said you're against CRT. CRT is listed under the umbrella of SEL. Social emotional learning should be taught at home by the parents and the way they do things. I had 2 ministers for parents. They taught me kindness. They didn't have to send me to school to do it. But what I'm saying, you're blowing more wind up there, sir. I have a question. Talking about what she does wrong and why she's doing it wrong, then tell us what you're going to do good. So my question, once again, is to clarify, what do you think SEL is? Because it's not what you're saying. And also, you keep mentioning the word tolerant, and that gives me bad vibes about, are you for LGBTQ, transgender? So my question is do you think a man is a man and a woman is a woman? Are you for LGBTQ, blah, blah, blah? And are you for transgender? And that's my question.
I think in schools, there should be it should be about education. It should be no agendas pushed or anything else. When you're an adult, you can do what you want to. However, I actually had a bill that I gave another legislator to file, the definition of woman. Just because we were having problems across the state in jails, having males going into women's prisons, which you can imagine that causes a lot of problems. So I'm a woman. I can define what a woman is, and I actually had another representative file legislation on what a woman is.
For me, transgender is very, very simple. It's genetics, XXXY. What that is what you are. And I'm not a biologist or a scientist or a doctor. I'm against any person, and like she said, once you're out on your own, you can have anything done. You mutilate your body in any way you choose to do so. In my opinion, But gender comes down to your genetics. What's the chromosome say? And that's pretty much it. Did that answer your question?
That's all right.
Okay.
Charles Howard?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stone, you visited my house the other day, and I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you all being up here. And while you and I were having a conversation there on the front porch, I mentioned that one of the kids that's in my class at church was out of school that day that they were protesting something, and that the kid couldn't even tell what he was protesting. And you said that if that teacher had been under your administration, he'd be out of there. That's correct. Well, I kind of doubt that because and another thing kind of stuck with me, it's kind of kept me up at night, about the conversation was you did not know who the union was that represented the teachers at Bardstown City School, but whoever it was, they didn't do much. And I told you that, in my opinion, unions, Karl Marx says what they are. They're the schoolhouse for socialism. And that I totally agree. And I do not think that you could fire that teacher because Bardstown City Schools are KEA. That's who they are. And in fact, they have KEA Day at Bardstown City Schools, so that means 12 times in your 12-year tenure, they closed the schools and had KEA days. And I would say about the rhino thing, and that's a big deal for us very conservative people, it can be determined by who gives you money. And so I'm concerned about that because I'm concerned about why any school district in Jefferson County would like to support you unless they think they're going to get something in return. That's the only reason that they would support you. So my question to both of you all is, in my view, I see the downfall of the public education system in Kentucky in the lap of 166 years of KEA. And I would like for you all to respond to that together, please.
Well, there's a lot of different parts of that question. I'll start by unions. You know, unions originated early on for safety, and then they evolved over time. Unions have their pluses and minuses. I've been a union member myself for 32 and a half years with the Pilots Association and Aviation. I apologize for not knowing the alphabet as far as what the designator was, KEA. And actually, I had a conversation with the superintendent after that. And I said, you know, we've never had any situations or issues with our local teachers union, and so out of sight, out of mind. So I can't say that I ever had an issue with our local teachers union because I have not. The other problem, the other thing that you said that was bothering you is what I said about the teacher and the picketing or whatever. And that's just me, probably just my military background. Honestly, I was very aggravated to know that students were leaving class during classroom periods to go down and picket. And to me, that's the teacher's responsibility to keep them in the classroom, keep them their heads in the books and doing the curriculum. So yes, I was definitely against that. Did I answer all your questions, sir?
Actually, the question is, my opinion is that KEA is the fly in the ointment with the public education system. Nothing's going to happen positively because KEA, it says so on their website, is concerned about the teachers. Nothing in the contract specifies any type of testing of the teachers or making sure that they're apt to teach in the hours that they're in class. You're going to be sponsored by Jefferson. You're going to, that sounds good.
I can't.
You will receive sponsorship from Jefferson County Teachers Association
in
some manner.
That's incorrect. They're simply, again, they see Ms. Massaroni as a pro-referendum person, a pro-choice, pro-charter, and obviously they're for public schools, so they are against her. They're not for me per se. It might say support, but at the end of the day, they're against Ms. Massaroni. So I'm not receiving any of that money. There's no sending it back. I never got it. I can't tell them what to do. I mean, can I make this any more clear? It's First Amendment. They can do what they want with their money. All you have to do is
opinion of the role that KET plays in the teaching or not teaching of children in the Kentucky education system today?
I don't know how to answer that question honestly, because I don't deal, you understand what the rules or the roles of a superintendent are. They're essentially there to hire or fire a superintendent and oversee the school the school taxes and operations, so to speak. The actual day-to-day connectivity, I guess you'd say, to the teachers' organizations, that's all done through the administration. So I really don't have a good answer for you. I can look into it and get back to you, is an honest answer.
I think over the last 100 years, we've got boggled down. Our teachers has got more stuff put on them by, again, bureaucrats at the KDA. I don't think Kentucky would be bad off if they reduced or even eliminated them. Honestly, I think local control is the best. I think it should be up to the superintendents, the board members, and the teachers to do what's best for the students. I don't think we need 600-700 bureaucrats trying to make those decisions for local governments.
Deborah Boloveski.
Hello, I'm Deborah Bohachevsky. I know both of you, kind of. Thank you for being here, and I know it's probably a little difficult, but it's great practice for what's ahead. Being that I do know both of you just a little bit, one thing, I didn't know who I was going to vote for tonight, and your answers have helped clarify quite a few things. One suggestion I would make is keep the snarkiness out of it. It's not going to win you any votes. That said, interesting that Mr. Howard had a question about education, because that is my question as well. On April 5th, the Nelson County Board of Education received a heavy blow when the Commissioner of Education overturned their 4-1 vote to dismiss the local superintendent. Do you believe the Commissioner of Education should have the sole power to override the school board's decision to terminate a superintendent? If not, would you sponsor a bill so that the sole power would be in the hands of more than just one person?
I'm never in favor of one person having control over anything, whether that be the governor, the president, Anthony Fauci, whoever. I'm not in favor of anybody having control. One person having control of everything. I think I kind of followed the case. I didn't get involved because it wasn't my jurisdiction to get involved in what was going on locally. However, I think it is the first time in history that the commissioner did not agree with the board, and I don't know the reasons why or why not. I think some of the things that we could have, I mean, there could be, if it's an issue or continues to be an issue, I think we could, I'm not big on developing boards, but we could have the court system solve it. We could make some kind of board to, with more than one person, look into situations if it's an ongoing situation, so.
I am in favor in this case. I've never had a job or a position in my life that did not have oversight. Every person should have oversight, and that's natural. As a matter of fact, I don't have the acronym in front of me, but for many, many years, there was like a subcommittee or something inside the Kentucky Department of Education that was specifically their job. And through 4 or 5, maybe even 8 years ago, I think there was a law that was enacted that somehow stripped them of that responsibility. I believe there was a motion or an attempt to put that back into a law this past session, and I'm not sure, pardon me?
The OEA, is that?
That's it, yes ma'am, the OEA, thank you for that. The OEA, and I don't know if they actually got that across the finish line or not, but like I said, everything deserves oversight, and I'm very much for the OEA being put back into that position where they can have that supervision and oversight.
And honestly, the OEA, I mean, that's another bureaucratic system that we probably could do away with because they don't do anything.
Chrissy's,
But you just said you think everything needs to have oversight, and that is their function, so.
But currently, they don't provide oversight, so they're just a bunch of unpaid, well-paid bureaucrats.
Well, then we can get some legislation so they can have a job.
Chrissy Scales? S-K, I'm sorry, I can't read it, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Skis, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I serve Nelson County. In the past legislative session, our current representative sponsored a bill that would have removed social and emotional learning from all the schools. As a licensed mental health provider that works with families and children in Nelson County, I see the mental health challenges our children face. I've worked with the school systems to offer the best support for the children I treat. Thankfully, this proposal didn't pass, but the fact that it was even proposed is very concerning because this program hasn't even been in place long enough to research the benefits yet. When the research shows it's helping our children, do you believe social emotional learning should be removed from our schools?
I did sponsor legislation to remove social emotional learning. I do think social emotional learning, teaching manners and all that is great, but when it becomes a $64 billion industry and the intentions are not as clear, and there's organizations, conservative organizations across the country trying to eliminate this social emotional learning. This isn't just a Candy Massaroni decide to take manners and politeness away from children. This is a national movement with national organizations that's done studies, that's researched this, and determined that it's harming our children, and our teachers are not psychologists. Why are our teachers trying to push social emotional learning or try to diagnose children or whatever they do? Let the teachers teach. Let's take some of the responsibilities of programs like this off of teachers.
One thing I'll agree with you in that statement is that our teachers have a lot of responsibility.
They absolutely do.
They really do. But again, I think social emotional learning is critical in today's world. We have something called, I don't know what it is, there it is. We have this smart device that's entered our world in the last 10 to 15 years, and it has changed our world. And our children are not prepared to get down to the basics of studies unless they are prepared properly by the teachers and administrators of our schools. Now, again, you can label it anything you want to call it, but for me, it's teaching people to be tolerant, get along with folks, and to have good manners. So, as it is presented to me today, social emotional learning is the correct way to go.
Yeah, I just want to follow up. Our schools are not supposed to be institutions to do everything for parents. We have parents that need to parent. If they want to teach, let them decide how they teach their kids, how they raise their kids. Let the schools teach.
Legislate that.
And again, I do agree with you that we do have parents that do that, but we have a lot of parents that aren't doing that. And we have a broad basket, a large group of people that we have to enable them as a whole for our society. So that's why I think it's important.
Okay, we are up to our last question of the night, and that goes to our distinguished Sheriff, Raymond Penaroa.
This is gonna be easy. First of all, thank you all for throwing your names in the hat. I've been there, it's tough. My question is the pension. And I will only talk as the sheriff, okay? As a leader for the sheriff's office, retaining individuals to stay and work for us becomes a burden. What can you guys do in Frankfurt to bring the pension back? The 401k is not cutting it, and I'm having a young man who grew up in law enforcement, okay? And he's leaving to go do something else. And I called it for 4 years. I battled physical court for pay raise Judge gave us a $2 pay raise on January when he took office. That is not enough. What can you guys do in Frankfurt to make that change? Thank you.
Well, right now, our pension system's definitely broken. We've had people with the county TRS that hasn't had a cost of living increase since 2012. This last session, we put, I think, over $312 million into the teachers' retirement plan just to give them at 50%. So all of the pension systems is broken. So I think we need to keep paying into to get it fully funded, the pension systems, for everyone.
If there's a surplus, the money's there.
Absolutely, and we put a lot of money into different systems, different funds this year for the.
Sorry, Andy, sorry.
It's okay. Sure, I agree with you 100%, and your vocation, your job, and saying a lot with teachers as well. The starting pay is just not enough. You're having a hard time getting recruits. I know with the teachers, they used to have 30 and 40 people line up and say, hey, I want to be a teacher. Now they got 3 and 4. Okay, so the pipeline's shrinking. Same thing for the folks that do. But you guys are in harm's way. I mean, that's a whole different animal. I get that. I don't have the answer for that. I know Mr. Higgins spoke specifically about it at the January 2nd coffee, about they had a $3.5 billion excess amount of money, and they already had $16 billion worth of requests for it. So there's never enough money, but they've been diligent about trying to pay down. I mean, I remember early on in the school board stuff, it was doom and gloom that we were so far behind the pensions. We were, $60 billion. I mean, that's just big money, folks. I don't care how you slice it. They've done a good job with the economy being strong in the last 10 years, paying that down. But even Senator Higgins has said, by the time it gets to 2032 or 34, it's going to be untenable. I think the pension is going to be somewhere like $2 billion a year that they've got to pay into that. So we've got to come up with some better answers than that, and I don't have one for you. I'm sorry.
I know that you can't do it alone because Frankfurt is a...
Yes, sir.
Right? But my question to both of you is, what will you do to rally the troops as legislators to go in and fund the pension for teachers, law enforcement, everybody?
Well, you're going to have to get creative again with that tax and the consumption tax for one thing, And people have said, well, we can't get down to below 2% in Kentucky, but look at, Florida does it, Texas does it, Tennessee does it. Hey, if they can do it, we can do it. We just got to be creative about it. And those consumption taxes, we could also do some things that maybe those funds specifically go directly toward law enforcement, EMS, dispatchers, things like that. And we need to do the same thing for teachers, folks, because the pipeline is shrinking and it's going to be critical. We're not a bad spot here in our county, but you go to other places and they can't even get substitute teachers. All right? Thanks for the question, sir.
One of the things I talked to Senator Higgins about possibly doing, we passed all this legislation to enhance gambling over last session, which I didn't necessarily agree with. But I think some of those funds, instead of going into the pockets of Churchill Downs, who has a monopoly on gambling, should go to pay the pensions off. I discussed that. Churchill Downs really didn't like it, but I think that's one option that we have.
Thank you both and good luck.
So we're going to have our 2-minute closing each. We'll start with Andy since Candy started the opening.
First, I'd just like to thank everybody for being here because this is democracy, folks. Yeah, we've been, going after each other a little bit up here, but that's what makes America great. I am all about never giving up on our government. I tell you what, it's broke, it's busted, but we can fix it. It's not broken. We got to keep scratching. All right. And thank you for being there. I love this country, of course. I love this county. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about the legacy and history of it. We've got to have someone in this seat that is going to represent all of Nelson County, and I believe I am the candidate. We talked about the Tale of Two Districts. I know she says the voting record doesn't matter, but it does matter. It does matter when it comes to Frankfurt as far as getting things done in politics. We cannot, and the other thing is we really need to be careful about, the last 25, 30 years, our county has gone through an incredible amount of growth. We've had a lot of progress, and we're going to lose that momentum. We've got folks around us that are, when we turn down projects or when legislation goes forward that looks punitive in some way to the industry, then the industry says, hey, I'll go to Anderson County, I'll go to Bullitt County, et cetera. And we need those jobs. Those jobs help keep our tax base high, and they're very important to us. Folks, we have 33 days to the election, okay? 33 days to think about this before we go in there and pull that lever. I will be a better advocate, a better voice for this county. I want to thank you very much again for being in attendance. I'll humbly ask for your vote. God bless America.
First, I want to say, I think I absolutely have been an effective legislator. I brought $85 million in road funds to Nelson County in this last budget, along with Senator Higdon. We just got on our last day of session, the Nelson County Technical Center teachers were being underpaid. I got that money to be allocated to them to get them back where they should be paid. I have passed legislation, and even though I don't have to have my name on it, if it's going to benefit Nelson County, I will let somebody else run that. If there's going to be somebody with an ego that doesn't want me to run legislation, and honestly, the ego comes from a local bureaucrat or party, but if that's going to happen, that's fine. I will work around it, and I've made many friends that's allowed me to work with them to get legislation through, to get money to Nelson County. And I've worked great with their leadership teams in Nelson County. Your judge, Senator Higdon, he supports me 100%. So I think I've done a great job representing you, the constituents, and I refuse to bow down to people that want to cause you harm.
Well, I'd like to thank both the candidates for being here. We've engaged in a robust discussion, and we had 22 people sign up, which beat the judge executive race from 2020. I'm sorry, 2022. So anyway, thank everybody. Thank Wes Bradley, Superintendent, for always accommodating, and thank Jim Brooks from Nelson County Gazette, and Amanda Mattingly from PLG, and Ginger from PLG. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Keith. Good job. Good job, Andy. Thank you.